Hey everyone, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, my name is Sarah and I am a surface pattern designer in training. I run Pepo Studios, which is my little itty bitty teeny tiny small business, and I do specialize in hand-painted watercolor surface pattern designs. So I'm brand new in the business world. I really just started this business earlier this year in 2023. So the way this works is that at the beginning of the year, I set out these big picture goals for my business, and you can watch the very first Big Goals Little Steps video if you do want to see what those big picture goals are. And then every 2 weeks since then, I've been checking in with myself and setting smaller, manageable goals that help me work towards those big picture business goals that I do have. So that's what these videos are, and today's video is the 7th installment of Big Goals Little Steps. Now you'll notice that we are in May now. We are in early May. It's May 6th today. And if you do the math, you know, we would have had in theory more than 7 Big Goals Little Steps videos if I did it every 2 weeks since the start of the year. Now I have missed a couple here and there, so that is something that I do want to talk about. So typically the way that these videos are structured is that I'll spend the first little bit talking about the goals that I had set out to do in the previous video and kind of keep you up to speed with how I did on those goals. And then at the end, I'll set out my new goals for the next 2 weeks. So with that, let's jump right into the goals that I had set out in the last video. Okay, so this video is going to be a little bit different from some of my previous Big Goals Little Steps videos. If you follow me on Instagram or if you know me in real life, you may have heard that over the past month or so, I've dealt with a lot, including a family emergency and some other stuff. And because of that, I think a lot of the Pepo Studios work that I am used to doing every single day has had to be put on hold. And so I really wanted to talk about that. I think a lot of the times in this small business or creative entrepreneurship world, we hear the advice that consistency is really key and that you need to be showing up every single day for your business and for your brand. And that if you miss one day, well, you better not miss 2 days. That's the kind of message we get a lot. And I'll start by saying that I really think that there's truth to that. Who am I to say this because I'm so brand new to this whole world, but the progress and growth that I've been able to see in my own business over the last 5 months or so that I've been really consistent and really pouring my heart and soul into it. It's been impressive to me to see just like how much I've grown and learned and changed even in that short amount of time. And I think it's worth saying too that I wasn't showing up because these online business people say that I need to show up. It's because it's something I love doing, and it's something that energizes me and that lights a fire under me, and it's something that I look forward to doing all day when I'm at work or whatever. So I wasn't showing up because I felt like I had the obligation to. But I think it's worth talking about just because sometimes I think the message can come across as saying like, if you miss 2 days, you're a failure and your business is not going to work out. And I'm not here to have like a solution to this problem, but what I will say to you, just in case anyone needs to hear it, is that I want to give you permission to take the time that you need to build your business and build your brand at a pace that makes sense for you, given whatever's going on in your life. There were a couple weeks in April where I really was not able to do any work at all, whether that be my day job or this Pepo Studios work that I'm working on because of the kind of emergency that we were dealing with. And that's not to say that I forgot about Pepo Studios. I didn't throw in the towel and call it quits because I missed more than 2 days. But the reality is that there were other priorities in my life at that moment. And that's okay. That's gonna happen, you know? And I wish that I could come to you and give you like some great advice for how to deal with situations like this, but the reality is it sucks. Like, it's just not fun when stuff like this happens, but it doesn't have to mean the end of everything else in your life that you were working towards before something like this happens. So yeah, I took a few weeks off of my Pepo Studios work and I'm back at it now. So Like I said, I really wish that I could come to you with like a groundbreaking, mind-bending solution to this, but the reality is I'm still kind of dealing with this stuff that's going on in my personal life. But just in case you needed to hear that, I just want to say to you, it's okay to walk this road at your own pace, depending on whatever's going on in your life. So with that, I'm going to keep this last 2-week section a little bit brief, just because, as you can guess, I did not get to do most of the things that were on my list. So let's just do a recap of what my goals were. Okay, so the first goal I actually did achieve, and that was to complete immersion through module 4 at the time, is when I had set that video. I've actually done more than that since then. I have been able to stay mostly on top of immersion. Actually, the very last module was released last week, and so I'm almost done with immersion, which is really crazy. I'm gonna do a full recap video. If you have any specific questions about immersion, let me know here or on Instagram, and I'd be happy to talk through that. Let me know about any questions that you do have. But yeah, I have been able to stay on top of immersion. It's actually been really nice to have those videos there for me. There were certainly times over the past few weeks where I have not been in a good headspace to be able to sit and learn, but there have been other times where that's exactly what I needed, was to be able to put up an immersion video on and just like be in that world for a minute. So I've been pretty on top of things. I still have to finish the very last module. I'm maybe about a third of the way through. What I will say just here is that the modules do get shorter as you go on, and so they become easier to digest, I think, but it's still really quite a bit of content that you have to like sit and think about. But anyway, in terms of working my way through immersion, I am almost finished with the entire course, so I guess I did achieve that goal. Okay, the second goal that I had set out to do surrounded these Spoonflower challenges, and I straight up did not do these. It's kind of a bummer because there were a couple challenges that I thought were pretty cool. So I had talked in my last video about the Doodle Bugs challenge, and so that was one where it was like, the idea was to do hand-drawn or hand-painted or whatever bugs. And I love bugs and I love hand-painting my stuff. So I unfortunately did not get to join that one, but honestly, it is okay because the draft that I was working with, which I did show in my last video, I showed some of the elements that I was painting. They weren't exactly what I had in mind. And so I think, again, at my own pace, I'm on my own time, I'm going to try this again, and I'm going to create a pattern that I really love that has to do with bugs. So, you know, stay tuned for that, but no, I did not do that challenge. There was another challenge that I had mentioned about birthday party linens, and that is also one that I did not do, but that is such a timeless thing. Obviously, people have birthdays all year round, so who cares when I get my birthday party patterns out there. I do have a better vision in my head for that in terms of at least like color palette. I kind of have a vision for what I would want that to be. I kind of want a kind of muted color palette for that, so something I'll probably do eventually, but did not do those Spoonflower challenges, and hey, I am totally okay with that. Okay, the last goal that I had set out to do was to update my website portfolio, and you can guess, I didn't do that either. At least I didn't do it within like the past 3 weeks. I actually did spend some time yesterday, like last night, working on my website portfolio because I knew it was on my to-do list for a long time and I was in a good headspace to do it and everything like that. So I did spend some time on it last night, and my website is shaping up pretty well. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the goals that I'm setting out for the next little while, but I did not do the website portfolio during the 2-week time frame that I had originally set out to do, but at this stage it is a little bit more up to date than it was when I had filmed my last video. So before I move on to the goals that I'm setting out to do in the next little while, I do want to take some space here to talk about the other things that I've done that didn't fit nicely into any of the goals that I set out, but were still progress and forward movement. So I'm going to do a little bit of show and tell. So even though I was taking a break from a lot of the ins and outs of this Pepo Studios work that I'm doing, I did actually find pockets of time over the past couple of weeks to paint a lot more than I had been doing in the weeks before that, and that felt really good. It was actually a very healing thing for me to do, and I am pretty new to this art world, and so I haven't had that experience before of like turning to art as a form of healing. So I'm really grateful that I have that. So I'm going going to show you some of the stuff that I made and then the patterns that have come out of it. So to start, I made some more blobby abstracts. Let me show you. Oh, we've got some sunlight to show these off, but these are really fun to do. I showed in a previous video, it might have been the last video, my first abstract pattern that I put together. And I think I did mention that it blew my mind when I realized that you can create patterns where things touch each other, where you don't just have like isolated elements all over the place. I was like, what? And so I've been playing with that a little bit more. And the other thing I love about playing with these kind of abstracts like this is that it helps me really focus on colors. Now, colors are, I'm learning more and more, are super important in the overall way that a pattern works and artwork in general. You know, I think something that differentiates patterns and prints and artwork that looks really good and stuff that looks a little bit more mediocre is that oftentimes the really good stuff has a great understanding of color. And a lot of the times, especially in the surface pattern design world, that means really limited color palette. I definitely fell into this trap earlier on and still now, where I like want to include a ton of different colors and then it just doesn't look so good. And so with these, I really challenge myself, and for each one, I'm like, I'm gonna use 2 colors and let's just see what these 2 colors can do. So for this one, I obviously used a blue and a green, and then here I used like a pink and a yellow. And because I use watercolor, there's a lot of other tones going on here too. But let me show you the patterns that I made using these. So I've actually made a lot of different colorways. I can show you a couple first. So I started with the cool tones. With this one here, I made a few cool tone patterns. They're really fun to put together and I like the way they look. I think they're pretty cool. Now with the warmer tone ones, the pink and the gold, I'm calling it, I've only put together one pattern so far. So let me show you that pattern. I really like the maroon background. I think it looks pretty cool. It's so funny because I am not a pink person, but I keep putting together these pink patterns where I'm like, oh, I love it. It looks great. So I guess I like using pink in my artwork. You can never find me wearing it. Okay, another fun pattern that I've made. So let me show you my painting. Woo! So these are some crazy mushrooms. I'll show you up close. That sunlight is doing some funky things. But the story behind these is kind of fun because I was visiting a friend and unfortunately we were roller skating and she wiped out and she broke her wrist, like pretty bad. And she broke her dominant hand, and we had been painting all of these things I painted with her, and we'd been painting regularly. And so when we got back from urgent care and she was all wrapped up, she had to paint with her non-dominant hand. We decided to keep painting, but she could not use her dominant hand. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it too. Solidarity, right? So I used my left hand because I've been creating these patterns that are so blobby and abstracty and bleeding into each other. I was like, this might be great if I paint with my left hand and if I just let things be wobbly and wonky and blobby, like maybe that'll make a cool pattern. And I totally think that it did. So I've made 2 colorways of this so far. I started with the original. So the original greens and blues, which I really like. I like how vibrant and cool these are. Now I can show you the second colorway I made has been a bit of an exploration and a new technique for me. And so this is a kind of blue-gray colorway here. And this is done for a Spoonflower challenge that was for the Pantone Ultra Steady palette. Now, I don't know if this actually counts for this challenge, but this was my very first foray into color indexing in Photoshop. So I mentioned this briefly in my last video, but basically color indexing allows you to be really specific about the colors that are used in your document on Photoshop. And so for example, when I brought this into Photoshop, this had 256 colors. And you can see, I mean, you know, things bleed into each other and create all kinds of interesting gradients. So it's no wonder that there are 256 colors in here. But with color indexing, you can pare that way down and you can specify which colors you want in your file. So I pared it way back to 9 or 10 colors and I used a specified palette for this Spoonflower challenge. Again, I'm not sure if it actually counts for the challenge, but I think it was a cool experiment to figure out how this technique actually works. And so it's definitely something I'm going to keep playing with going forward so that I can understand how to really use it. Okay, one more pattern to show you. I've saved the best for last. This is maybe my favorite pattern that I've ever created so far. So let me show you the original painting. Okay, this is the original painting. Whee! So I painted a bunch of oranges. My friend is really into fruit and she also kept saying like, oh, it'd be cool to do a pattern that has like all the different stages of a fruit. So you've got like the blossom and, you know, which I really didn't do all the stages here, but I do have the orange blossoms, and then I've got like whole oranges and circle slices, and then you've got your like crescent slices, and then you've got leaves too, the orange leaves. And let me show you the pattern that I put together. I love it so much. Now this dark background is probably my favorite colorway. I love it so much, but I also made a couple of other ones too, and I made this light blue background, which also looks really nice with the oranges, and then a kind of cream background as well. I'm so excited about these patterns, and now I'm like, well, I have to do a bunch of other fruits. I can't not, because how fun are these? Like, they're so cool. And listen, I know it's not unique. I know everyone has an orange pattern in their portfolio, but I love it. I just love it so much. So updates to come on the fruit pattern front. Okay, so one last thing before I move on to my goals for the upcoming little while. I actually was able to order my very first fill yard on Spoonflower. Woo woo! So if you have no clue what I'm talking about, Spoonflower is a print-on-demand website for fabric and home goods. It's really popular among surface pattern designers, and the way it works is that when you upload your design, you do have to purchase a proof before you can make it available for sale. I'm really glad that they do that, actually, because like as I upload my designs, I'm like, what if there's something wrong with them? Like, what if I don't like it? I would want to know before like other people order my designs. So it can be expensive to do that, and so one solution that a lot of people use is this fill a yard option, where with 1 yard of fabric you can fill up to like 42, or if you do 2 yards, 48, I guess, squares of fabric using your patterns. And so if you really want to, you can proof 42 designs all at once. And I think they come out in like, I don't know, I guess you could do the math, but they're pretty small swatches. You know, they're like this big-ish. And so I thought it would take me forever to get to this point, because I'm not that fast of a designer. Because you can see, I mean, I hand paint everything, then I have to scan it, then I have to clean it up in Photoshop, and then I have to build the pattern, and then do my different colorways and my different scales and stuff, and that takes a while. So I was like, it's gonna be forever before I design enough patterns to fill a yard. But in reality, you actually don't need 42 designs to do a fill a yard. You can tile your pattern into as many squares as you want. And for some of mine that are at a larger scale, I really wanted to do a bigger tile than those little squares so that I can really see if the pattern's working okay. I also, as I mentioned, have uploaded many of my designs in all the different colorways that I've made and several different sizes. And as I started doing that, things quickly added up. And so I actually had enough to do 2 fill a yards. Now, that does not mean that I have 84 designs proofed. Like I said, most of mine I did in 4 square tiles, but I'm so excited to see these patterns in real life. And so that does mean that pretty soon, many of my designs will be available in my Spoonflower shop. I can't wait. So I'll leave a link to my Spoonflower shop in the description of this video. As of right now, I have not received my fill a yards yet. And so I'll make a video of that and I'll show you my proofs when I get them, because I'm so excited and I can't wait. But, you know, who knows, maybe by the time this video goes up, or, you know, hopefully in the coming week or so, my proofs will be here and I'll be able to mark my patterns for sale on Spoonflower. So that's very exciting, kind of crazy to think about. But then people can buy it for fabric or home decor or whatever. So I can't wait. Or wallpaper, which would be crazy. But seriously, those oranges that I did, I was like, oh, they'd be so beautiful as wallpaper. I would love it. So anyway, I will keep you updated on that front. But I just wanted to let you know that that fill a yard is happening. Woohoo! All right, well, it turns out that even when I don't meet all of my goals, I still have plenty to say. So anyway, that's enough about the past month or so. And now let's move on to the goals that I'm setting myself out for the next little while. Okay, so typically I would set out my goals for the next 2 weeks, but I'm not going to do that this time, and that's because I have some travel coming up, so that is very exciting. If any of that becomes relevant to my art and pattern design work, I'll be sharing plenty about that, and I'm sure over on my Instagram I will share there, but if you're interested, I'm going to Greece. Woohoo! I'm going to the Greek Isles. It's going to be amazing and so beautiful, but I'm not going to be able to update my YouTube channel or update my Instagram or create new patterns while I'm there because I'm obviously going to be having fun doing things in Greece. So because of that, I'm going to be setting out longer term goals for this next month or so, knowing that I have some travel coming up, and so I won't necessarily be able to achieve like these giant things in the month of May. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Like I said earlier, I am moving at my own pace. I could really use a vacation at this point. So anyway, let's get started with my very first goal. Okay, my first goal is maybe a bit of a cheater goal, but that's to finish immersion. Woohoo! Can you believe it? It's kind of crazy that we are already at the end. Like I said, I am almost done, so that's not something that'll take me that long. Honestly, probably this weekend I will wrap up all the modules, although there's still several live calls that I have not listened to yet. And on top of that, there's lots of action items that I still need to do. So the goal really is to finish the actual course, but I think on top of that, there's a little nuance there in terms of the action items that are identified in the course that I would like to move forward on, especially with the last 2 modules are about licensing your art and about creative entrepreneurship. And there are things in both of those realms where I really want to sit down and have some brainstorming and heartstorming and figure out what my next steps need to be. So I'm kind of encompassing all of that under this big goal of finishing immersion. So I'll be sure to let you know how that goes. But just a reminder that if you are interested in immersion or you have questions about my experience, please let me know either here or on my Instagram page as well. I am certainly planning on filming at least one or more kind of recap or overview videos so that people in the future who are considering immersion can use that as a resource. I know when I was deciding whether or not I should take the course, it was such a huge decision, and I was trying to find any resource I could find from anyone else who had done it before. So hopefully it would be a helpful thing for people who are wondering. So let me know if you have any questions. The next goal that I'm setting out for myself is to actually continue expanding on this fruit collection idea. Now, I really love the oranges. Like I said, I think it's my favorite pattern that I've made. They look so cool. And so now I want to kind of go crazy with some other fruits. I want to do apples, pineapples, maybe like pears, lemons, all kinds of fruit. If you have a specific one that you would love to see, also let me know, because I'm super psyched about this idea. I just love the way that it turned out. And on top of that, part of this goal is to think a little bit more in the realm of collections, of actual collections. This was a whole module in immersion, but so far I've basically been designing standalone patterns. I have not been designing them as part of a collection. And so this is something that I want to try and force myself to do a little bit more and think about how to, yes, build these hero patterns that I've been creating, but also creating these blenders and these coordinates that create a more holistic picture of this entire collection. This is going to require a different kind of creativity than I've used before to just create these standalone patterns, but it's something that I know is important and that I do want to improve at. So maybe I'll start with my orange pattern since I love it so much, but I might incorporate some of my other fruits. And I'm going to start thinking about, even if it's making like a mostly solid print or some really subtle blenders or coordinates, like I do want to start thinking more big picture about these patterns that I'm creating. So the very last goal that I'm setting for kind of the month of May is to start researching email newsletter providers and services. Now, I know Flowdesk is one that a lot of people use, and a lot of the kind of bigger people I see use Flowdesk too, but I know there are other options out there. So it's something that I want to work towards. I know if you watch my very first Big Goals, Little Steps video, one of my main big goals for 2023 is to start my email newsletter. So It's exciting, and the reason why I'm kind of at this stage right now is because my website is getting close to ready to go. There's still more that I have to do. For example, there's a blog section, and I would like to have a few blog posts written before I publish my site, just so that that's not just like an empty page there. And I know it can be a really helpful way for people to find you too, if you think about your SEO and your keyword use and everything. But once my website is up is kind of when I think I can really start building my email newsletter, and I'm so excited for it. But I need to do some research into what provider I want to use, how it's going to work, and if I really have extra time, then maybe I can start thinking about formatting or even writing the first newsletter. That would be so crazy. But anyway, that's a huge goal for me, would be to start moving the needle forward in the email newsletter realm. So that is it. Those are the goals that I'm setting out for myself. Again, these are mostly for the whole month of May. It's not just for the next couple of weeks, just because I do have some travel coming up. But as a recap, here are my 3 goals. The first goal is to finish immersion. Woohoo! And so that includes the actual course and then some of those action items as well. My second goal is to play with this fruit collection idea. So creating more fruit patterns as well as blenders and coordinates in order to think more holistically about an actual pattern collection. And then again, my very last goal is to start digging into email newsletter providers and services, which is very exciting. So I will be sure to let you know where that goes going forward. Okay, so that is it for this Big Goals Little Steps video. You won't hear from me again on this Big Goals Little Steps front for a couple more weeks. It'll be June before I post the next Big Goals Little Steps video, so watch out for that. But in the meantime, I may film some other smaller videos between now and then. For example, like I said, when I receive those Philly-yard samples from Spoonflower, I'll definitely record that and show you how that goes because I'm super excited. And I've also thought about some other videos that I think would be interesting and helpful to include on my channel as well. I do want to include some more informational videos, like for example, one that I would love to talk about is using different types of watercolor paper because it's something that makes a big impact on the paintings that I do for my patterns. But if there's any topic in particular that you are interested in or questions that you have based on, you know, the work that I do or the stuff that you see me talk about here on YouTube or on my Instagram page, let me know. I would love to hear from you about what you'd like to hear about from me. So with that, thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for sticking with me until the very end, and I'll see you in the very next video. Take care, everyone. And bye from my studio assistant, Miss Pumpkin here, who's clearly very stressed out from all this video filming action.